Welcome to Feminist Question Time, brought to you by Women's Declaration International, which is the leading global organisation defending women's sex-based rights against the threats posed by gender identity ideology. There's more information on our website, womensdeclaration.com, where you'll find our declaration on women's sex-based rights, which has been signed by 37,460 people from 160 countries and is supported by 518 organisations. We have many volunteer activists, including country contacts from every continent, engaged in defending women's rights. Do join us. So this week, I'm really pleased to introduce our speakers. We're going to have Alícia Boluda from the Feminist Association of Educators, Docentes Feministas por la Coeducación, in Spain. She's going to give us a report on a conference which is happening right now in Spain and tell us what's happening and what they're aiming to do. Then we're going to have Sue England, who's from UK, Germany, and her talk. She's going to do an outline of UK Human Rights Act and its connection to the European Convention on Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Then we're going to hear from Emma Bateman from the UK, Expelled again, doing the Wokey Cokey with the Green Party. So an update on what's happening in the UK Green Party. And then we're going to hear from Bano from Afghanistan, an update on women and girls treatment in Afghanistan under Taliban control. I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, which is, well, Amparo Domingo is going to introduce Alícia. So over to you two.
So we are at a city called Ribarroja del Túria, which is 25 kilometers more or less west of Valencia. This is all feminists gathering to attend the conference that's happening live today. And I'm going to show you the panel. This is Silvia Carrasco, our friend, who's going to give her talk. And we are going to leave the room now because we don't want to mess with Silvia's presentation. We're going to go to the next room. This is Alícia Boluda, my friend. She's both a teacher member of this feminist organization, but she's also a member of WDI Spain. So we're going to go to the next room and she will give you the introduction.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Alícia Boluda from Spain. I'm a secondary school teacher. I speak on behalf of DOFEMCO, which is an acronym of Feminist Teachers for Coeducation. I also belong to Women's Declaration International, as Amparo said. I believe we are the only organization specifically made up of radical feminist teachers. Thank you very much for having us in Feminist Question Time. This conference means a lot to us. We have titled it Recovering the Coeducational Agenda. This is our second international congress. It can be seen on YouTube channel shortly. The first one was 3 years ago. It can be seen now on YouTube or on our website, dofemco.org. There is an important difference between 10 years ago and now. But there is a common point too. The difference is that we are now more courageous than then. We all are going to speak publicly. We all lost our fears. Then, 3 years ago, many of us were incapable to do that because of many fears. You know what I am talking about, cancel culture, but also a phenomenon that in Spain they call furia trans fury, which means violence against women. The common point is that there are some women that have been menaced in many ways. So finally, they decided not to participate in the conference then and now. Spain is a country with a long and powerful feminist tradition. But not only that, we also have a strong feminist perspective on education. In Spain, for decades, Coeducation has been understood not as a mixed school, boys and girls, but as a school to promote the rights of girls and their place in the society. Proof of this are the experts who gathered here, such as Elena Simón or Amparo Tomé, and many others who are our references. Ana Hidalgo, our president, and Silvia Carrasco have been yet speaking in this space before. All of them have built throughout their professional careers rigorous studies, intervention proposals, and feminist methodology for education and teaching. Nowadays, coeducation, which means for us feminist perspective of education, is being not only deactivated but supplanted by transgenderism. In the panels of this Congress, we are talking about both these assaults on girls' rights and other aspects, like girls in STEM, language, feminist language, etc. What I would like to highlight on behalf of the FEMCO is the following. Radical feminist organizations are very active internationally and very connected now, as you know, and this is very positive. Women have suffered a serious attack on their sex-based rights. That's true. But it seemed to us, to FEMCO, that not enough attention is being paid to everything involving education. We believe that women, radical feminists in particular, should be concerned about childhood and education, not only because their rights to a rational education and health are being violated. We must take care of their generational change. Today's children, our girls, are being educated in gender identity, and teachers are being indoctrinated too, which is very concerning. If we do not organize ourselves to react in the field of education, also at the international level, it will be even more difficult to us to continue fighting for a long time. So I would like to say that please, as feminists, let us take into account the role of teachers and the importance that school has for the future of our girls. Let's give support to teachers that are fighting against the gender identity madness. So I would like to show you the book. You see the title, High-Stakes Coeducation. And I insist, coeducation in Spain means not only education mixing boys and girls in a classroom. It means a feminist perspective of education and have a long tradition of this. This is a thinking of decades. I hope.
So we're going to now go to Sue England. She's from UK, Germany. She's a human rights law specialist, worked in a number of countries, UK, Belgium, and Germany. She's very keen to ensure we understand our rights. So she runs courses in human rights law for non-lawyers, which many of us have been to and can highly recommend. They're just fantastic. Loads of people are putting in the chat what great series they are. So, and we'll share them when you get started again on them. The title of Sue England's talk today is Outline of the UK Human Rights Act and its connection to the European Convention on Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. So thank you so much for speaking, Sue, and over to you.
I've done a lot of sessions and they will start again, but I have this spring, but I haven't got a date yet, but it's nice to be here. I was asked to do a couple of sessions. I'm going to do something this week and something next week. So, and I'm going to keep it short and I don't have PowerPoint slides. So this is about just a refresher and also bringing us up to date. It's mainly focused on the UK, I'm afraid, about how these mysterious things, our human rights, work in the UK. Because there was a big hoo-ha about human rights in the UK in 1998. And if you think about that, that's 26 years ago, and many people just won't have been, involved at that stage, or may now be a bit fuzzy about the details. But what we had in 1998, courtesy of the Labour Party, in fact, under Blair, was a bringing of rights home to the UK. Now, what did that mean? That was because Britain, like all the other European countries in the Council of Europe, had signed up to this wonderful European Convention on Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, which is usually just called the European Convention on Human Rights. So you can use the shorter title. But we didn't really, that was 1950, and we didn't really have full access to it. This was, the powers that be fiddling about, because we were fully signed up to the European Convention on Human Rights, but you couldn't use them in British courts. You had to, if you had a problem, you had to go through the British court system and all the appeals and things like that. And they weren't allowed to discuss the European Convention rights. And what you had to do was stagger through this long process of going to every court, making appeals and things. And if you weren't happy with the result, you could then apply to Strasbourg and go to the European Convention Court in Strasbourg and get a decision there. This was called exhausting your rights, and it was a very good term because it exhausted you. It could take 7 years to do this and finally get up to Strasbourg and say, well, by the way, this case ought to be decided on the basis of my human rights. Now, this was annoying our bosses, the government, because then what happened was loads of cases were being taken to Strasbourg from the United Kingdom. And the figures looked terrible. If you were in Spain, you were using the European Court of you were using the European Convention in your courts. So you were sort of shuffling it, it was being dealt with, and you didn't have to go onto the public stage. So the UK looked as if it had an absolutely awful human rights record because all these cases were being taken to Strasbourg because they weren't dealt with back in the UK. So the Human Rights Act came in and brought these rights home, as they say. And ever since then, you can plead any of the rights you have under the European Convention in your courts, in your local courts. If they don't come to the decision that you like and you're still not happy, you can still then appeal to Strasbourg and get a decision. But this is why there has been this huge upswelling of human rights issues being discussed in the UK and argued about in our courts. And as we're all aware, we've been doing an awful lot of lawfare because of this as well, because we're trying to bring in these essential human rights that we have. So the Human Rights Act gives us these rights, which are from the European Convention, and everybody in Europe has. And so let's just briefly mention some of them, because I'm not going to do a laundry list talk, but obviously you have the right to life, but that can be very important if you are getting treated very badly in prisons or by the police or in hospitals. You have a right not to be tortured or subject to inhumane or degrading treatment. And these rights are needing to be used more and more by women as they're suffering bad treatment from the police or suffering bad treatment in hospitals, for example. Torture doesn't have to take place, in prisons. Children have the right to an education. That's very important. All of us have the right to be treated fairly if we go to court, either because we're being charged with criminal offences or because we're going to the civil courts. We have the right to fair procedures throughout those processes. We have the right to vote. We have the right to respect for our family and private life, and that has been very important and used in many ways. And also, we have these crucial rights. Here is where we have these rights to freedom of thought, freedom to hold our own ideas, whatever type of ideas there are. People talk about, it's called beliefs, but just translate that into ideas. We have the right to freedom of expression, or freedom of speech, as it's more familiarly known. And of course, we all know that there have been loads and loads of cases about this and continue to be cases about this, because your freedom of speech can't be shut down unless you are actively inciting real violence against other people. By which I mean, you're saying our organisation should go out and kill people. Not this false, oh, I'm feeling frightened of you because you're saying things that I don't like and are not very favourable towards my group. No, has that person actually said we should collect money and get weapons and we should kill people, an individual person or in some group? And also, freedom of expression can only be shut down if you're talking about actively destroying the human rights of other people that are set out in the convention, actively destroying them, saying, we don't want democracy anymore. We don't want women to be given the same rights as men. We don't want Black people to be given the same rights as groups with other coloured skins. You know, I mean, you've got to be fighting against the basic principles of democracy and non-discrimination and fairness. And then finally, we have what's called the right of association. Well, it's not final, okay? It's my final one I'm going to mention. There are others, okay? Which we are associating here. We're associating on Zoom. We're associating when we have other forms of connection with people. We're associating when we take part in all sorts of groups and exchange information between ourselves, you know, even if we're not in the same room. It's an old term because, of course, in the past, people actually usually had to physically meet. We couldn't do this long distance using this technology. So these are all rights which we are extensively using, and it's very important that we continue to do so. Another thing is a particular element of this particular system between the Human Rights Act bringing these rights home into the UK. When they were, Labour did this in 1989, and shortly afterwards, they did devolution. They did some regionalism of the powers to make legislation and control things in the UK. And they did that for Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So to keep it a bit simple, you know, we have sort of 3 provincial governments now that can make laws going through their own parliaments and also enforce those laws. They run their own police forces and things like that, okay? So one of the very important things about this situation was that the arrangement was made that those parliaments and governments in those 3 places cannot do anything which is against human rights. Anything they try to do which doesn't comply with human rights is void. It's not valid. It never becomes law. Now, the legal peculiarities of all this are that Westminster still can do things that are against human rights. And that's a complicated situation, which I'm not going to plunge into now because it takes quite a long time to explain. But we do have the strange situation that anything that they do in Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland they can't do anything unless it's in compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights. So what does this mean in practice? We've had a couple of examples from Scotland. They, up in Scotland, using the government, using their own parliament, has actually created acts of their parliament that don't comply with the legislation, the human rights rules. So they've passed two of these things, were passed and were supposed to start, and immediately they were challenged in the courts. People went to court and said, this act, as obviously the famous one is the Gender Recognition Act, just doesn't comply with the European Convention on Human Rights. And a court looks at it relatively quickly and says no. So the whole thing is void. It never comes into effect. Whereas if Westminster did that, it would come into effect and you'd have to go through a court process to challenge it later. But for a while, it would be in effect. So this is a very powerful control over those three provincial governments. And in practice, what it means is we have another awful piece of legislation coming in Scotland. We have this hate crime legislation, which has passed through the Scottish legislative process. And in fact, our dear King has actually signed the piece of paper saying that it should be fully come into effect. But they haven't done anything about it to put it into effect. And as soon as it comes into effect, it'll be very difficult for them to operate it, because you would understand as a policeman, if I start acting on this under the powers that are given to me by this act, it's going to be challenged. It might take several months, but it's going to be challenged and declared void. So if it's declared void in December, and I arrested you in June and did various things to you, it'll turn out that I had no legal power to have that, to do that. Everything I did to you in June was outside the law. So therefore, even though there is some delay, of course, this is a considerable break on those three parliaments, governments in Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland actually doing these things. They know they are subject instantly to control under human rights. Now, I'm sure people are following enough of these stories to know that we have an awful lot of problems with Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. They're all areas of the UK, their parliaments, their government, who are strongly captured by these transgender ideas. That's where it's really biting and being pushed in the UK. So we have to remember, therefore, that the fact that we can now use these human rights from the European Convention in our courts has saved our bacon, vegan or otherwise, in several occasions in the UK, because we've been able to shut down Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales going way ahead on all of this and introducing the most appalling laws. So my final point is today is that is now the situation that still stands. We have the Human Rights Act, and we have this settlement for the 3 sort of provincial areas. And at the moment, they're providing us with a lot more protection than we had before, you know, when you had to drag yourself for 7 years off to the court in Strasbourg. And because you can use these rights in our courts, and they're very, very tough on the governments in Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. So my point is obviously that we need to stick to this as much as possible. You will no doubt be seeing occasionally, as you follow, you know, legal and political affairs, that people jump up periodically and say, we need a Bill of Rights. And then a lot of technical discussion follows. Now, this is intended to get rid of the Human Rights Act and replace it with a piece of legislation in the UK, covering the whole UK, which is going to get rid of the Human Rights Act. It's often dressed up as, you know, an improvement. Believe me, it's not an improvement at all. The only people who are pushing to get rid of the Human Rights Act and have what they will, you know, generally all these proposals are badged Bill of Rights, do not wish anybody any good. They are not trying to do this to improve our human rights, to improve our ability to use these rights. Because as you say, you can be given rights, and then there can be quite a lot of difference and difficulties of how do they actually operate? How do I use them? Like when we couldn't go to our own local courts. So we're coming into a year, you know, when there are going to be elections in the UK. At the moment, the latest proposals for bills of rights being pushed by the government, the Tory government in Westminster, have been dropped again. But there are people who don't like human rights, who are always behind the scenes, or then occasionally they pop up, you know, going on and on about bills of rights. Do not listen to them. We must fight for our existing arrangements. And just one thing for point of information, we say Bill of Rights. Well, what's that? It's just trying to make it sound posh. A Bill of Rights would be a normal act of Parliament, an act of the Westminster Parliament. And acts of the Westminster Parliament, we don't have a constitution. You can't sort of make them secure. You know, you can't sort of dig them in. Any act of the Westminster Parliament can also be changed. So they would be working to remove our Human Rights Act in Westminster and put in another piece of legislation, which is Act of Parliament, but called something posh, like a Bill of Rights. And this is all designed to try and reduce our access to the rights we have. So that is my little bit of history and just a little bit of reminder to everybody of these things that have happened over the last 26 years ago. And this is my warning to bring things up to date. We've got lots of other legal issues going on, but I thought it was useful. Don't get sidetracked by anybody who starts to talk about getting rid of the Human Rights Act and putting in a Bill of Rights. And remember, any sort of fundamental constitutional change like that would just open the door to start saying, well, why don't we change the way we do with human rights in the devolved areas? This gives us an opportunity to mess around and reduce the protections that people have in Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales while we're pursuing this project. So I think people have got the point. And so my final comment is next week I will do another very short but sort of similar. Let's remind ourselves and let's get the history clear and let's look clearly at what's happening about CEDAW, the UN Convention on the Rights, on the elimination of discrimination against women, just so that people are clear about what's actually going on. So thank you very much.
Now we're going to go to Emma Bateman. Emma Bateman is from the UK. She used to be an environmental activist, primarily concerned with stopping new nuclear power. But for the past 5 years, her main battle has been with the Green Party. Emma has been suspended, expelled, and unexpelled several times, and is pursuing a court case against the UK Green Party. And the title of your talk, Emma, or Emma's talk, is Expelled Again, Doing the Wokey Cokey with the Green Party.
So yeah, I've been in the Green Party for quite a long time. The Green Party is one of the most progressive parties in the UK. Let's say, you know, it's on the left and it's got lots of young people who join it, and it's very proud of its pro-trans policies, which the length of the pro-trans policies is quite remarkable, especially when you look at them in comparison to the length of the women's policies, which you'll see, oh, no, we don't actually have a women's section, we just have a trans rights section. Now, it was the kind of the pro-trans thing has been going on probably 2014, 2015, like that. And some people will know about Amy Challoner, who was a bit of a dark period in the Green Party. If you don't know about young Amy, you can go and look him up. It's not pleasant. But some of the people that were in charge at that time, who were lauding Amy Challoner, Amy Challoner got into quite a lot of trouble. His father was a member of the Green Party and ended up in prison for a long time for very nasty crimes. I won't go into that, but it was the people that were kind of pushing Amy are the same people that are still kind of at the top now. So they kind of built their power base on the pro-trans kind of LGBT Greens, young Greens sort of base, and that's not really changing despite a lot of lip service that's paid to it. So let's check this. In February 2021, the leaders kind of came out with this thing. They finally decided, right, I'll go back a bit. At first, they were trying to kick everyone out, right? They were trying to kick all the gender critical people out. They thought, you know, it's just a tiny bigoted group. We can get rid of them. We'll be fine. We'll kick all the gender critical people out. It'll be fine. They kind of 2021, they went like, oh, this isn't really working. So the leaders came out with this idea that they would come up with this code of conduct for the leaders, believe in expecting the best of others and communicating in ways which reflect and advance our political aims. Then I don't know, I think it was just a few days before that, Sian Berry was the co-leader of the Green Party, and this is what she said to Pink News. Sian Berry thinks you should reconsider being in the Green Party if you don't believe trans rights are human rights. So then what happened was, because this was becoming quite problematic, they got in some EDI trainees and they did an audit, and the EDI audit said that every participant interviewed or who took part made comments about the negative impact of the conflict in the party. They talked about people being traumatized, but the thing is with this EDI stuff is they don't really spell it out directly that it was the sex and gender very clearly, but they did allude to it. But the bit that most of the people in the Green Party at the top kind of seem to cling on to was that the environment for these behaviours is not being managed effectively, and negative virus is damaging the party's culture, and they need to establish clear and concise mechanisms for handling unacceptable behaviour and following through with appropriate actions. Well, some of them grabbed hold of what they thought was unacceptable behaviour, but obviously what's unacceptable to some people is not unacceptable to others, because to some people it's unacceptable to say men aren't women and that you can't change sex. So this is the current leadership. This is not how it's how things stand now. This is in March 2023. Zach Polanski, who is our deputy leader, said those members who claim that trans women are men and trans men are women should not have a place in the Greens. So it's not getting any more friendly. This is our current co-leader, Carla Denyer, in September 2021. She called LGB Alliance a hate group and said the LGB Alliance peddle outright transphobia. She hasn't retracted that. She hasn't made any indication that she thinks that this is not the case anymore. Okay, so this is our leadership who are pushing this. Now, Mary Clegg is the CEO of the Green Party, again in 2021, in a paper that was supposed to be about equality and all the protected characteristics. She listed all the protected characteristics, but on the protected characteristics of sex, she put a footnote that said sex-based rights can be seen as a route of querying and questioning trans people's rights to exist and access resources. That was the only protected characteristic that had a footnote. Okay, so again, has she changed her mind? I don't think so. She's still the CEO. So what they've done since this EDI kind of audit is they keep talking about they're going to make changes, improve things to improve the culture of the party. But all that happens is they sort of constantly rewrite the constitution. They're constantly improving it by implementing revised complaints and suspension processes, bringing in new code of conduct, bringing in social media policy. And they're supposed to be improving the well-being of the party by facilitating the creation of guidance for the framework of ethics and conduct. Now, this framework of ethics and conduct that they've brought in the Green Party is supposed to be a kind of series of documents that help people to realise what behaviours they should be exhibiting in the Green Party. It's going to be used in the sort of disciplinary systems as well, to kind of guide those people in the disciplinary systems as to, you know, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But again, because this is coming from the same people, and because you can't really change a culture just by rewriting a constitution or a code of conduct, what's happened is, oh, I haven't got a picture there, have I? Okay, so this is from the transphobia dog whistle guidance. Okay, so the LGBT Greens, as part of all this kind of like writing all this stuff, they've written the dog whistle guidance to transphobia. Now, the LGBTIQA plus Greens is the official Green Party group that sort of represents LGBTIQA plus people. And so what they put out is, you know, it's representative, or can be taken by some people as being the Green Party stance. So in this dog whistle guidance, these things are included. So protecting children is a queerphobic dog whistle, transphobic dog whistle. Asking what is a woman is a transphobic dog whistle. Protecting women is a transphobic dog whistle. Talking about real men or women and biological facts is a transphobic dog whistle. And then they came out with further to this, they came up with a guide to queerphobia. Now, this guide to queerphobia is in the framework of ethics. So it is referred to when the disciplinary committee are looking at what sanctions to put on people, you know, what's acceptable behaviour. This queerphobia guide is in there and will be looked at. And this says things like disrespecting or disregarding another person's autonomy, whether over their identity or body, that's queerphobic. Knowingly using a label for a person that doesn't describe their identity, queerphobic. Using the word lesbian to only refer to cis women who are attracted to cis women, queerphobic. Denying or refusing to respect trans people's gender identity. So you can see that this doesn't really leave gender critical members much space to discuss sex and gender and women's rights in the Green Party, when all of these things are considered queerphobic. And they even included in the queerphobia guidance referring to people with XX chromosomes as women and XY chromosomes as men or male. They actually use male or female, is queerphobic, because obviously that upsets intersex people. So even discussing, you know, males and females in terms of chromosomal makeup is queerphobic. So this is the improvements that happened since 2021. All of this has not been good news for the Greens overall, because in wider society, you know, all this stuff is being questioned and the Greens are being questioned. And what's happening is people are bringing court cases, like myself, because we're not putting up with this behaviour anymore. And it's got pretty nasty, and they're sort of realising that this could cost them a lot of money. You know, financially, the Greens are going to be in a very bad place, because we've just had a court case of a guy called Shara Ali. Shara was, he used to be deputy leader of the Green Party, and he has just won a substantial part of his claim against the Green Party. They removed Shara as a spokesperson. In the Green Party, you have spokespeople for, you know, who are the sort of the people to go to on different policies. They're the voice of the Green Party on different policies, etc. And Shara was removed for his gender critical beliefs, and he was discriminated against by the Green Party, and that's what the judgment has come to. That's what they said. So there's him, there's me with a court case, there's Dawn Furness with a court case, Alison Teal has got a very good case if she decides to go to law, and there are others in the pipeline. So anyway, I'll come on to talk about me for a little bit, because I'm looking at the time and going, yes, I'm running on a lot. So I am expelled at the moment. I did call this the Wokey Cokey with the Green Party because, yeah, so in 2021, spent from March to August, I was suspended. And then 2022, February to August, I was suspended. Then what happened in January this year, I got expelled. This was for a complaint made by a former co-leader of the party. So as I say, it's coming from the top, this. I've had a complaint from the former co-leader of the party. I've had a complaint from the former deputy leader of the party. That was quite interesting. She kind of tried to suggest that I was a safeguarding problem for the Greens, because she claimed that I made a child cry at conference, which I didn't. I didn't make a child cry at conference, but she tried to claim that to get me expelled. Anyway, so what got me expelled was this one from the former co-leader of the party. I was expelled in January 2023. I appealed against that, and part of my appeal was because she had actually said during the complaints hearing that she bought the complaint in order to stop me going to conference. Now, this is in the Green Party, this is not supposed to be allowed, because you're not supposed to use complaints, weaponized complaints, to bring in order to prevent a political opponent or someone with, not really supposed to be a political opponent, we're in the same party, God, but you know, someone with views you don't like. You're not supposed to use the complaint system to try and silence them. That's actually a vexatious complaint. So I appealed, and it was sent back again for another disciplinary hearing. That disciplinary hearing, they expelled me again. So I appealed again. That appeal hearing was heard in July, and then they decided to look at and see whether it was vexatious. Then they got a bit worried and thought they better go and consult the lawyers, which I think they did. And a result that's usually supposed to take 2 weeks, knowing that this hearing was in 20th of July, I didn't hear until mid-November. So I was expelled until then. And then they quite begrudgingly let me back into the party. And I think they kind of realised that actually they shouldn't have kicked me out in the first place. Maybe, I don't know. I imagine, because I haven't actually seen what the lawyers said, but I can imagine that they wouldn't have let me back in if the lawyers had said, yeah, no, that's fine, you can kick her out. Okay, so anyway, there are some people that are very determined in the Green Party. So then what happened was they re-expelled me in January, because they said that the appeal in July had not been done properly. I haven't been told why. I haven't been told who objected to it. But I've just been told that because it wasn't done properly, I'm out again. There's no date for the next appeal. It could take months. They haven't got an appeals committee, because I believe that some of the appeals committee resigned in protest at that. So it's all a bit in the air, and I have no idea how long I'll be out for. But, you know, I'm still going to fight it. Right. Now, when I got expelled, some people have said, like, oh, you must have said something really terrible when you get expelled. You know, you must have been really awful. I was expelled for the evidence was 8 tweets from me. They're all still on my timeline. One of them was my profile. They objected to my profile pic because I didn't say all views on my own. So that was the thing. And then they had 5 more tweets from other random people calling me transphobic, which is supposed to be the proof that I brought the party into disrepute, because lots of people were calling me a transphobic bigot, so therefore I must be. And random people on the internet calling you a transphobe is a reason to expel you from the party, it seems. Anyway, so the tweets were kind of similar to this, you know, where I sort of said the only power I have is to state the truth on Twitter. People cannot change sex. Males cannot become females. Identifying as is not the same as being. Though you are right that the truth is powerful and can be painful for those who don't want to hear it. That was kind of thought to be against the code of conduct, because I said people cannot change sex, and according to Green Party policy, people can change sex. So that was what the problem was with that one. This one, I said, I'm the co-chair of Green Party Women. People cannot change sex. Well, I've identified myself as the co-chair of Green Party Women, which I was. Obviously, I'm not now. And because, again, I said people can't change sex, that's against the code of conduct. And I should have apparently said before this that people could change sex as per Green Party policy. So you can see this one, I said that I thought it was disrespectful to women to allow male sex offenders to call themselves women and for their crimes to be recorded as being committed by females. Apparently, this was disrespectful to male sex offenders. I'm not entirely sure how, but I can't remember all the details, because all of these have gone through 2 appeals hearings, 2 disciplinary hearings, plus a further appeal hearing that I wasn't present at. So, you know, they've all gone through a lot. And here's the ones of various people calling me a transphobic bigot. These people might not even be in the Green Party. It doesn't really matter. They're just people on the internet. If they call you a transphobe, that's what the party accepts. Now, I've kind of skipped through that, but if you wanted to know more about what's going on in terms of complaints and what's happening to people, we had a webinar called The Process is the Punishment. I don't know if I can give you details later to put out on the WDI thing. I hope I can give you the links. Yeah, you're nodding. That's great. And all of these people on here have, well, apart from Pallavi, the chair was Pallavi, she's in the Green Party. Dawn Furness was suspended for quite some time. I'm expelled. Alison Teal is still suspended. She was the prospective parliamentary candidate for Sheffield. She was suspended, as it's still on a no-fault suspension, for sharing an article that called Eddie Izzard a man and saying that perhaps we need to talk about this. Zoe Hatch is a former co-chair of Green Party Women. She's on a no-fault suspension for actually sending out an email that told the truth about what was going on in Green Party Women. It won't surprise you to hear that 3 of the people in this picture are all former co-chairs of Green Party Women, because Green Party Women is where the kind of crux of what's going on in the Green Party is. So this is a webinar that if you want to listen to some more horrors about what's going on in the complaint system in the Green Party, I recommend you listening to that one. Now, are things getting better? No, I don't think so. This is 3 Green seniors, right? These 3 veritable people were put on no-fault suspensions. I can't remember now, 2-3 weeks ago, maybe slightly more, and their crime was in an informal Google group. Eric, who's 99 in the middle there, it was claimed that he'd shared confidential information. He didn't do anything of the sort. The other 2 co-chairs were kind of accused of not stopping him doing that. So all these 3 are on a no-fault suspension. Nicola's been in the party 40 years. You know, this is disgraceful behaviour. This is what's happening to our people. And again, this is Zoe, Alison, and Lucy, all on no-fault suspensions. Zoe and Lucy were both former committee members. Zoe was co-chair at Green Party Women. Now, this is Cheska Walton. She is the other co-chair of Green Party Women when Zoe was a co-chair. Cheska believes trans women are women. Cheska believes that gender critical beliefs are transphobic, and she tweets that. She believes sex work is work and believes that choking can be a bit of fun. You know, this kind of thing. You can see where she's coming from. Now, Cheska at Brighton conference ripped down our Green Women's Declaration banner. You can see it here. I did a little video of it. She ripped that down and attacked us and started, you know, yelling about the fact that we shouldn't be there. She's not on a no-fault suspension. You know, this behaviour is acceptable in the Green Party as long as you've got the right views. So I'm looking at the time. I'll try and speed up a bit. Green Party women, as I said, Green Party women was kind of at the crux of what was going on in the Green Party. It's been a battleground over gender critical and sort of pro-trans sort of members. Green Party women, it's for women and people who let me get this right. People who identify as women or as gender variant, which means obviously we get a load of people that are male, I'm allowed to call them blokes, in their voting, standing for the committee, etc. But it's been a battleground. Now, what happened was the gender critical side has been kind of like ploughing on and getting more seats on the committee. We've been kind of winning. And so in November, Green Party women was disaffiliated from the Green Party on a jumped up excuse, I would say, a completely jumped up excuse. Zoe Hatch had just been suspended, and they decided that in 2021, our election was held a couple of weeks late, and we didn't announce the results until 2 weeks after we were supposed to. And so ever since 2021, we haven't been a proper committee. So therefore, we had to be disaffiliated. Our membership list was taken away. We couldn't contact any members. You know, this is what's happened. And we've only just been able to hold new elections. I'm saying we, even though I'm kicked out of the party, because these are my sisters in spirit. Okay, so, and now they've got the Green Party women back. They found out that suddenly loads of people have dropped off the membership list somehow. We're not quite sure what's going on there. Right. Now, this is, I put this in, although I won't say a lot about it. If you want to know the kind of things that go on in the Green Party women in April last year put out this series of 3 tweets. And basically, they sort of said they welcomed the EHRC calling for public debate on the issues of sex and gender. And they said it's Green Party women is clear. The EHRC should not leave trans without legal protection from discrimination. And, you know, it's not... I think it's supportive of trans people. It's not saying, you know, they shouldn't be in the party, anything like that. But because they said, we feel it is vital for female safety, dignity and fairness that they are protected on the basis of sex, this was thought to be outrageous. The GPRC, the Green Party Regional Council, held 3 emergency meetings about this. They tried to get rid of Zoe at that point. They were talking about suspending the whole committee. And, you know, for these 3 tweets. So these are what you can't say in the party. What you can say in the party, you can call people, you can say that TERF should be exiled to the face of the sun. You can say TERF should get in the sea. You can say all gender critical people are transphobic, that kind of thing. That's all acceptable. Right, so because we got kind of annoyed about this, and we set up the Green Women's Declaration. Again, I say we, this is people in the Green Party, lots of us, and they're working really hard. I'm not a driver of this, but I'm kind of hanging on the coattails. We were inspired, obviously, by the Women's Declaration International. I took it from the Women's Declaration International, so thank you so much for that. We set up the Green Women's Declaration for supporters and members of the Green Party, so you don't have to be a member of the Green Party, which means that all the suspended and expelled people can sign it and join as well. You know, so it's a space, and we've been holding webinars about, as I say, about what's going on in the Green Party. It gives us a declaration. With the declaration, we can work cross-party, because we're very aware that in the Liberal Democrats, in the Labour Party, we're having exactly the same kind of issues. And a couple of weeks ago, we wrote a letter, a joint letter from the, that's the Women's Declaration there. Yeah, we had a joint letter to the Observer from Liberal Voice for Women, Green Women's Declaration, Labour Women's Declaration. And I've got to say thank you to my friends and Liberal Voice for Women, especially Zoe Hollywood, who is quite simply amazing. So we're trying to do things outside the party because the Green Party doesn't allow us to do anything. And finally, because I am running quite over time, Shara Ali, as I say, was in court last week, or he got the judgment last week, and he won the substantial part of his claim. So now I've got to go away and look at what I'm going to do, because my case has been not on hold for a little while, but we've been waiting to hear what this judgment is, because it's quite a significant judgment. I think it will have an impact on quite a few different political parties. Now, it was a very nuanced judgment, and people have interpreted it in different ways. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to say anything about what I think about it, even though I watched all the trial, and I think the judge was pretty good. and gave a very clear, good judgment. But if you want to know about it, we're having a Green Women's Declaration webinar about the Shara Ali judgment with Sarah Phillimore, and she's going to come along and talk to Jude English, who is the new co-chair of Green Party Women. Zoe's going to be there as well, and they're going to be discussing the legal implications and Shara Ali's court case and the court cases going forward. I'm sorry that I've overrun, and that's my romp through.
Bano is a woman activist from a country in which it's a crime to be a woman. She raises her voice for Afghan women and girls across the world by pen, ink, and in different ways. Yael is a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering degree, graduated at the end of 2018 from a country where 3 years later, after her graduation, women and girls don't have the right to education. Yael is in an organization where they run a secret online school helping girls in education, a program to help women where they don't have the right to work outside and they face these problems in every day of their lives. Yael's been on before, and many of us have talked to her, and I know, really so pleased to be in touch with you. Yael is also the country contact for Women's Declaration International for Afghanistan, and has writes about the situation in Afghanistan and women's rights issues very extensively. So we'll put the links in for that. She's going to do an update on women and girls from Afghanistan under Taliban control. Thank you so much, Yael, for coming on.
و ما وقتی میخوایم در مورد صحنه صحبت کنیم یعنی میشه اشکایم سر میکنه، این اصلا نمیتونم صحبت کنم. و اما روزی که دانشگاه بسته میشد اعلامیه به نشر رسید، من در حال آمادگی گرفتن به امتحان بودم. مثلا باورم نمیشد. خب بعد از اینکه من رفتم خودم دیدم یعنی واقعا این گپ راست بود. اونم صحنه اشکایم سر کرده بود، اصلا نمیتونستم خودم کنترل کنم. بعد از امون روز من کاملا انگیزه من بعد از دست دادم. یعنی حالا وقتم که من کتاب میگیرم سردرد میشم، اما تمام خاطرات از ذهنم مرور میشه. خاطره خیلی بد زندگی مثلا اون روز که بندون بستر شد، ما نتونستم دیگه بارزای خود برسیم. و همیشه در زندگی من این هدف داشتم که من یک جراح موفق شوم، ولی متاسفانه که فعلا ما نمیتونیم دیگه درس بخوانیم و پیش بریم با هدفهای ما برسیم. و همونطور مثل من هزاران دختر دیگه بارزایشان که بعضشان از دنیا رفتن و باز دیگرشان در خانه ششتن و همگی وضعیت روحی روانی خیلی بدی به سر میبرن.
مخکې له دې چې طالبان راشي په جمهوریت کې ما ډېر مشکلات ولیدل. پلار مې په اول وختونو کې اجازه نه راکوله چې زه درس ووایم، خو د وخت په تېرېدلو سره ما پلار راضي کو چې زه درس ووایم او خپلو هیلو ته ورسېږم. اوس بیا لکه پخوا همغه ستونزې ډېرې شوي او زموږ سرنوشت اصلا معلوم نه دی. د ډېرې جګرخوني او فکر کولو له لاسه افسردګي ستونزه راته پیدا شوې وه. اوس مې ځان په خیاطي موردوزي باندې مصروف کړی دی، ځکه زما پلار یوازې دی، غټ رور هم نه لرم، اوه خویندې یو او د کور غټه هم زه یم، نو مجبوره یم چې کار وکم ځکه طالبانو ټولې دروازې په موږ بندې کړي دي او زموږ هیلې خاورې شوي او زه مجبوره یم چې ټوله ورځ خیاطي خامکدوزي یا موردوزي وکم. خو بیا هم هیله لرم چې هر څه سم شي او زما آواز د اسلامي امارت ټولو کارکوونکي واوري.
خیلی آرزوهای بزرگ دارم. میخوایم به یک الگوی خوب به مردمم شوم، یک الگوی باشم که همه مردم بگویم که فرزانه الگوی ما است. مدت 1 سال است که خیلی جگرخون هستم، خیلی برام سخت تمام میشه که در خانه می باشم و که درس نمیخوانم. چندین دختر خانمی را دیدیم و مثل خانم در خانه حتی باعث شده که افسرده شوند، افسردگی بگیریشون. واقعا جای درد است، جای تاسف است که پنتونا بسته است. این مشکل موانع پیشرفت ما میشه. ما میخوایم هر چی زودتر پنتونا باز شود تا ما بتونیم بر کشور خود، بر وطن خود خدمت بکنیم.
Today, I am here to have an update report about Afghan women's situation under the Taliban control, to what is going on Afghan women under the Taliban control, what is the pain of Afghan women inside Afghanistan. Today, I am here to raise the voice of Afghan women that you're suffering today. Since August 2021, when the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, Taliban banned millions of girls from school and university. Taliban banned women from visiting park. Taliban banned women to go into restaurant. Taliban banned women to go to participate in sport. Taliban shut down all bathhouses and beauty salons for Afghan women. The beauty salon in Afghanistan, that were only woman for woman. In the beauty salon weren't like men and women. That were only between woman and woman. But the Taliban just shut down that all and just they tried to close every door against women. When the Taliban took control of Afghanistan on 50 August 2021, 1,000 women became jobless, including teachers, engineers, doctors, and many professionals that they had worked in Afghanistan to serve for people of Afghanistan. But because of Taliban restriction, they all just lost their jobs. And also Taliban banned women from access to healthcare. Healthcare is very important, but the Taliban banned women from access to healthcare without their male chaperone. We just heard that, we just seeing this and hearing this. When the women have someone, for example, their husband, their brother, or their father, they can go to see the doctor. But if the woman don't have anyone, they cannot have the right to go by their own for the doctor. This is very, very bad restriction of Taliban for the woman, that the woman cannot go without a male chaperone to the doctor. And also recently, as we hear and as we see, Taliban are recently arresting women and girls by title of bad hijab. When they see women and girls in outside, they just arrest them and then they ask for their father, brother, or husband. And then they beat their husband, brother, and their father, and tell them why you permit your daughter with like this hijab. I don't know what is the meaning of hijab for the Taliban. Hijab is one hijab, and the whole country in Afghanistan is Muslim, and they know very well what is hijab. But by different titles, they just arrest and restrict the add restriction on the woman. When they ask for the woman to ask them for their father, brother, and husband, they beat their father, their brother, and husband, and tell them, don't permit your daughter, don't permit your sister, don't permit your wife to come outside with this kind of clothes, or why they are without male chaperone. And this is the recent which is now going on in Afghanistan, and all my sisters and women in Afghanistan is very afraid of this situation, and they are very hopeless. In Afghanistan, under the Taliban control, no one have the right to complain, even if someone asks about their own right. For example, if a woman asks, we have the right of education, we have the right of free movement, we have the right to live like a human, like a free human, but the Taliban answer is no, and they will answer by beating, arresting, or killing. And despite of this all, the Taliban will say, here's our government, here's our control, and no one have the right to complain under our control. Today I'm here to have the voice of Afghan women to you all. Today, I'm here to share the pain of Afghan women to you all. Here's two messages of the Afghan woman that I want to share this to you through this FQT program. The first woman, that her name is Sarah, she said, when the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, her life completely changed. She said, I was able to go to work and support my family. Now I am a housewife. I just sitting at home and doing nothing because we are not allowed to go and work to take part in society. She said, I am hopeless and my all plan and goals remains as a goal. The other woman, that she is a student of Kabul University, she says, here was only one day for my graduation, but everything changed after the Taliban restriction that they closed the door of university. And instead of my diploma, my degree that I received, I just heard restriction and close the door of university. Now I am all the time home and I am hopeless and I don't see future. This is not the first time that Afghan women and Afghan people are suffering and facing with this kind of restriction. As we look to the history and the back during 1996 up to 2001, this was the year that Taliban had the first time of government and control on Afghanistan people. And during 1996, 2001 was as a dark time for Afghan women and girls. As we see today, at that time, women don't have access to education. Women don't have access to go job. They don't wear freedom. Women don't have the right to select. Women don't have the right to speak aloud. And after 2000, up to 2001, up to 2021, this is the time when the Taliban wasn't in Afghanistan, and so this was like a good opportunity for all women and girls across Afghanistan. During this time, all the women and girls started to study, to know about their own right, about the society right. They just started to go to school and be like a positive part for the society. We had freedom to study, but again, because of Taliban, every day we faced with problem. In our school, we don't have peace. In society, we don't have peace. In university or job place, we don't have peace, because every day we faced with security problem from the Taliban, just to share the horror situation in society, that to share the fear message to the society, just to ban the women and girls from studying. But women and girls in Afghanistan are very hero. We just ignored that all, and we just continued to study. We just ignored what is the security problem from the Taliban, what is the restriction from the society, from the culture, the everything. We just ignored that all, but we just started to study, and we just continued to be a positive person, positive part in our society. And during that last 20 years, women became very strong by power of education, and they had part in a different part of society, and to serve and to the people of Afghanistan. Again, after 2021 till today, the Afghan woman again returned to that dark time that the Afghan woman and people had during 1996, 2001. I guess 2021 is a dark time again for Afghan women, that we all lost our all achievement that we had during last 20 years. During last 20 years, we had the right of freedom. We had the right to go to job. We had the right to education and work and help people in our society. But again, in 15 August 2021, we faced with a dark time and we lost everything and every achievement that we had. And the Taliban every day started to ban and have restriction on women, on their dress code, on their education, and they beat them by different name and title to justice, and they just started cruel on women, and they banned women from education, and they banned them from to go to outside and continue to their studies. As the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, as the first days of their control, they just started ordering and restriction on women. During the first weeks of their government, they ordered that the woman should be covered from head to toes. Women cannot leave their house without male chaperone. A woman cannot work in no place. Women don't have the right to work. Just in some places, if they cannot fill it with the man. Women don't have the right of divorce. This is very bad restriction from the Taliban. If they said if their husband is very bad person, if you're not even good person with a woman, the woman don't have the right to divorce. If the man want, they can divorce, but the woman don't have the right to divorce. This is very bad restriction from the Taliban on women. And also women are completely removed from the society. If you walk across the Afghanistan, you will not see any pictures of Afghanistan women inside the country. When you're walking inside Afghanistan, you will not see the picture of Afghan woman in the country. You will not see any woman with colored clothes. They are covered from head to toes with men, because they will not allow women without male chaperone. As you see the picture, this picture show that day by day under the Taliban control, the woman lost their hope, and this get very hard every day for us. In this picture also you see, so it's very hard sometimes to explain the restriction that Taliban have on women. Sometimes it is very beyond explanation, and they just under the Taliban control, as they want, they just cruel on women, and they just continue this, and this is very, very hard time and dark time for Afghan women in our life. As I mentioned in previous slides, during the last 20 years, when the Taliban wasn't in Afghanistan, Afghan women started to continue studying. They're starting to know about their own right. They're starting to be a good and positive person for their society. So when the Taliban is come to control again after August 15, 2021, and they started restriction on the woman, Afghan women are not silent. Afghan women is starting to protest against them, to ask about their own right from the Taliban. And the Afghan women start to protest against the Taliban in the public street, and they ask with very loud voice from the Taliban that education, work, freedom of movement is our own essential right. We want this right from you all. You don't have this right to restrict this all for us. But the Taliban answer was beating, arresting, of killing of the woman that they had participated in the protest. Still, after after the Taliban banning on women that he had participate on public street and to protest and ask about their own right. When the woman became banned from the public street to have protest, women are starting to protest inside their house. Inside their house, they're starting to protest and have their voice, to raise their voice for the Taliban and for the around the world, to say the education, work, and freedom is our own essential right, and no one have this right to take this right from us. And still, Taliban are searching every single house to find who is talking against them, who is talking, working against them, who is participating even in their own house to find them. If they find them, they will, without asking, without waiting, they just arrest the woman, they just kill the woman and beat them. We have very bad reports, very sad reports that there's a lot of women activists that they work to raise their voices for Afghan women. They are in the Taliban jail, and no one knows their future. We don't have any information about them, if that women are fine or not. And this. In one side, Taliban have this pressure to ban women, to silence the woman in Afghanistan, to don't say anything. In other side, as women have now the power of education, and today they know what is their right, they are not silent. They just can continue. If they were banned from the protest in the public street, they just continue now to protest inside their house. If they are very in fear and inside their house, they continue by different path, by different way, by topic, by online programs, by different way. They just continue to raise their voices for around the world for action. If we see today, this is the power of Afghan women are very strong, as we see today, up today. The country of the world, no country recognized the Taliban as a government. This is because the power of the Afghan woman inside Afghanistan. They are not silent, they are protesting, they are asking, they are not just not silent, they are protesting, and this is because of Afghanistan women protest and strong that no one around the world, any country, recognize Taliban as a government. And this is a very hope for us as Afghan women, that we should continue our protest by different path, by different way. It is okay if the Taliban have pressure on us, but we should not be silent. And this is like a hope for us that one day we should be free and happy. You can see that women are fighting and protesting for their own right to have again the right of education that we have in the past. This is like, we know, Afghan women know the education is power. Today we have the power of education, and by power of education we know about our rule right, and we will still continue to fight, to protest and ask about our own right. This is not only my voice, only my pen. This is the all voice from every single woman in Afghanistan and girls, that we know if there is no school, no university, then what will be our future? My heart, the all Afghan woman heart is full of pain. If there is no future, because we don't see, we are continue to protest. Taliban are continue to pressure on the woman. We don't see future without school, without university. And we know the Taliban are lying. The Taliban are lying. They just want to fight for their power. But we all, as an Afghan woman, we are fighting for our right. And Taliban actively searching houses, places by different way to find who is talking against them. If they find them, they will kill the people, the person by different title, and the day after they will announce in the news that the mentioned person was killed by different title. They will not mention their own name, that we killed that person. Just they say by different title, the person were killed. And you can see in the picture how cruel are the Taliban on women, and this is very hard sometimes to explain it. In the capital of Afghanistan, in Kabul, every family, every woman, every girl, they have access to phone and internet. And the situation in province of Afghanistan is more horrible because women don't have access to education. They don't have the power of education. Women don't have access to phone. Women don't have access to internet. If they report which cruel are on them, which such as kidnapping, killing, stone killing, and forced marriages. And so Afghanistan women urgently need to be here. They need a humanitarian stand. They need health care. This is all that Afghan women need. Afghan women are not silent. I am also one of them, that I'm not silent. I, as an educated member of our society, when I say this is my responsibility to not be silent, I am not silent. I am working to raise my voice by different path, by different way around the world for action. And I will continue this to raise my voice for Afghan women. Even I see my life is under threat, and I'm under threat. I will continue this. When the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, we as a member of educated member of our society, I and my friends and classmates, we become together and we make a group by the name of Together We Can Make a Change. By this group, we started to help the students that they are not able to go to school. We help them with their study, and still we are helping them with their studies via online program. And also we, as the Taliban banned women from the work, and there was some women, the families and women that they are not able to work today, and they are inside their houses and they don't have anyone to help them. We are raising some funds for the family which they are inside Afghanistan and they really need. Afghan women and girls especially really appreciate and say thank you to you all. During after August 2021 till now, we see more women around the world. They are with the Afghan women. Afghan women really appreciate your stand up with them, especially with this hard time that we have. Thank you for your stand up, that you reading us, you hearing us, and sharing our voice around the world. This is everything for us, for as an Afghan woman. This is like a power of energy for us. We don't feel that we are lonely. We feel we are very strong, and we will continue our fight, our protest, to finally one day we have again our own right to have education, work, and freedom back. Afghan women raising their voices by different way, by different path. One of that is WDI. Thank you, WDI. WDI is like a path, like a way that we are sharing the voice of Afghan women from the inside of Afghanistan. We are WDI to the world. Thank you so much for the WDI. This is like a path for us that we can share the pain of Afghan women, what is really going on Afghan women, for the world woman to know how is the situation for Afghan women. We have WDI Twitter account and Substack, and we all the time share the news, the updates, what is really going on Afghan women inside Afghanistan. And if you want to know, if you want to see what is every day going on women in Afghanistan under the Taliban control, you can see the Afghanistan Twitter account and Substack for the reports, for the update, and for the news that is and the pain and the voice of Afghan woman, that is the woman that live inside Afghanistan, and you're struggling and facing with a dark time, and you don't have hope. And also, as I mentioned, when the Taliban banned women from the work, more women in Afghanistan, they lost their jobs, and even they don't have anyone in their family to help them. So if you want to help them, you can help them. For your information, we have an organization. The name of organization is Beautiful Afghanistan. And the member that they work in Afghanistan is all is my classmate and my friend that I know them for several years. They are working in height, and they just when someone help to the family, they just transfer the help directly to the woman. I know them, the member that they work in Afghanistan. The all is my classmate and my friend, and they are very good people. They just we all are working this all. We are helping students with their studies. We are helping families, especially women that they don't have anyone in Afghanistan, because we see we see as a this is our responsibility. This is our responsibility as a young, as a educated member of Afghanistan, to help Afghan women, to help the students, to give them hope, to share with them awareness, to tell them about their own right, to tell them to be strong, because this hard time one day will be end, and everything will be okay, and we just be together and to be together strong. You can see the picture of these children that they are very sad, and they just looking for help and support, and they are very sad under the Taliban control. Next slide, please. You can see the pictures. That's very sad to explain. This is the pictures that in the past we had the right of education to go to school, and now after the Taliban control, that all end. Before ending my presentation, I want to say this is the voice of all Afghan women to tell woman, life, freedom. We are still fighting, protesting, not just for our own right, for every woman right that are around the country. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your hearing. Thank you for your stand up. Thank you.